Chapter 7. I rapped on Brand's door. "Come in, Corwin," he said. I did, deciding as I crossed the threshold that I would not ask him how he had known who it was. His room was a gloomy place, candles burning despite the fact that it was daytime, and he had 4 windows. The shutters were closed on 3 of them. The 4th was only partway open. Brand stood beside this one, staring out toward the sea. He was dressed all in black velvet with a silver chain about his neck. His belt was also of silver, a fine linked affair. He played with a small dagger, and did not look at me as I entered. He was still pale, but his beard was neatly trimmed, and he looked well scrubbed and a bit heavier than he had when I had last seen him. "You're looking better," I said. "How are you feeling?" He turned and regarded me, expressionless, his eyes half closed.
"Where the hell have you been?"
"Hither and yon. What did you want to see me about?"
"I asked you where you've been."
"And I heard you," I said, reopening the door behind me. "Now I'm going to go out and come back in. Supposing we start this conversation over again." He sighed.
"Wait a minute, I'm sorry," he said. "Why are we all so thin-skinned? I do not know. All right. It may be better if I do start over again."
He sheathed his dagger and crossed to sit in a heavy chair of black wood and leather.
"I got to worrying about all the things we'd discussed," he said, "and some we had not. I waited what seemed an appropriate amount of time for you to have concluded your business in Terran Earth and returned. I then inquired after you and was told you would not yet come back. I waited longer. First I was impatient, and then I grew concerned that you might have been ambushed by our enemies. When I inquired again later, I learned that you had been back only long enough to speak with Random's wife. It must have been a conversation of great moment, and then to take a nap. You then departed once more. I was irritated that you had not seen fit to keep me posted as to events, but I resolved to wait a bit longer. Finally, I asked Gerard to get a hold of you with your trump. When he failed, I was quite concerned. I tried it myself then, and while it seemed that I had touched you on several occasions, I could not get through. I feared for you. Now I see that I had nothing to fear all along. Hence, I was abrupt."
"I see," I said, taking a seat off to his right. "Actually, time was running faster for me than it was for you, so from where I am sitting, I have hardly been away. You're probably further recuperated from your puncture than I am from mine. Sorry, by the way, it's been a long time since I rock and rolled, and also since I've read anything, so I don't remember what voice that I gave to Brand. I'm kind of feeling it out here. This is a consistent problem. Let's see." He smiled faintly and nodded.
"That is something anyway," he said, "for my pains."
"I have had a few pains myself," I said, "so don't give me any more. You wanted me for something, and let's have it."
"Something is bothering you," he said. "Perhaps we ought to discuss that first."
"All right," I said, "let's." I turned and looked at the painting on the wall beside the door. In oil, a rather somber rendering of the well at Murata. 2 men standing beside their horses nearby, talking. "You have a distinctive style," I said.
"In all things," he replied.
"You stole my next sentence," I said, locating Martin's trump and passing it to him. He remained expressionless as he examined it, gave me one brief, sidelong look, and then nodded.
"I cannot deny my hand," he said.
"It executed more than that card, your hand, didn't it?" He traced his upper lip with the tip of his tongue.
"Where did you find it?"
he asked. "Right where you left it, at the heart of things, in the real amber."
"So,"
he said, rising from the chair and returning to the window, holding up the card as if to study it in a better light.
"So," he repeated, "you are aware of more than I had guessed. How did you learn of the primal pattern?"
I shook my head. "You answer my question first."
Did you stab Martin?" He turned toward me once again, stared a moment, and then nodded sharply. His eyes continued to search my face. "Why?" I asked.
"Someone had to," he explained, "to open the way for the powers we needed. We drew straws."
"And you won."
"One lost," he shrugged. "What does any of this matter now? Things did not come about as we'd intended. I'm a different person now than I was then."
"Did you kill him?"
"What?"
"Martin, Random's son. Did he die as a result of the wound you inflicted?" He turned his hands palms upward.
"I do not know," he said. "If he did not, it was not because I did not try. You need look no further. You found your guilty party. Now that you have, what are you going to do?"
I shook my head. Nothing. For all I know, the lad may still be living.
"Then let us move on to matters of greater moment. For how long have you known of the existence of the true pattern?"
"Long enough," I said. "Its origin, its functions, the effect of the blood of amber upon it. Long enough. I paid more attention to Dworkin than you might have thought. I saw no gain to be had in damaging the fabric of existence, though, so I let Rover lie sleeping for a long, long while. It did not even occur to me until I spoke with you recently that the Black Road might have been connected with such foolishness. When I went to inspect the pattern, I found Martin's trump and all the rest."
"I was not aware that you were acquainted with Martin."
"I've never set eyes on him."
"Then how are you aware that he was the subject of the trump?"
"I was not alone in that place."
"Who was with you?"
I smiled. "No, Brand, it is still your turn. You told me, when last we talked, that the enemies of Amber hide all the way from the Courts of Chaos, that they have access to the realm via the Black Road because of something you and Blaze and Fiona had done back when you were of one mind as to the best way to take the throne. Now I know what it is that you did. Yet Benedict has been watching the Black Road, and I've just looked upon the Courts of Chaos. There is no new massing of forces, no movement toward us upon that road. I know that time flows differently in that place. They should have had more than enough time already to ready a new assault. I want to know what is holding them back. Why have they not moved? What are they waiting for, Brand?"
"You credit me with more knowledge than I possess."
"I don't think so. You're the resident expert on the subject. You've dealt with them. That trump is evidence that you have been holding back on other matters. Don't weasel, just talk."
"The courts," he said. "You have been busy. Eric was a fool not to have killed you immediately. If he was aware you had knowledge of these things—"
"Eric was a fool," I acknowledged. "You are not. Now talk."
"But I am a fool," he said. "A sentimental one, at that. Do you recall the day of our last argument, here in Amber, so long ago?"
"Somewhat."
"I was sitting on the edge of my bed, and you were standing by my writing desk. As you turned away and headed toward the door, I resolved to kill you. I reached beneath my bed, where I keep a cocked crossbow with a bolt in it. I actually had my hand on it and was about to raise it when I realized something which stopped me."
He paused. "What was that?" I asked.
"Look over there by the door."
I looked. I saw nothing special. I began to shake my head just as he said,
"On the floor."
Then I realized what it was. Russet and olive and brown and green, with a small geometric pattern. He nodded.
"You were standing on my favorite rock. I did not want to get blood on it. Later, my anger passed. So I, too, am a victim of emotion and circumstance."
"Lovely story," I began.
"But now you want me to stop stalling. I was not stalling, however. I was attempting to make a point. We are, all of us, alive by one another's sufferance and an occasional fortunate accident. I'm going to propose suspending that sufferance and eliminating the possibility of accident in a couple of very important cases. First, though, to answer your question, while I do not know for certain what is holding them back, I can venture a very good guess." Blaze has assembled a large strike force for an attack on Amber. It will be nowhere near the scale of the one in which you accompanied him, however. You see, he will be counting on the memory of that last attack to have conditioned the response to this one. It will probably also be preceded by attempts to assassinate Benedict and yourself. The entire affair will be a feint, though. I would guess that Fiona has contacted the courts of chaos, may even be there now, and has prepared them for the real attack, which might be expected any time after Blaze's diversionary foray. Therefore... You say this is a very good guess, I interrupted, but we do not even know for certain that Blaze is still living. Blaze is alive, he said. I was able to ascertain his existence via his trump. Even a brief assessment of his current activities, before he became aware of my presence and blocked me out. He is very sensitive to such surveillance. I found him in a field with troops he intends to employ against Amber. And Fiona? No, he said, I did no experimenting with her trump, and I would not advise you to, either. She is extremely dangerous, and I did not want to lay myself open to her influence. My estimate of her current situation is based on deduction rather than direct knowledge. I'd be willing to rely on it, though. I see, I said. I have a plan. Go ahead. The manner in which you retrieved me from durance was quite inspired. Combining the forces of everyone's concentration, as you did, the same principle could be utilized again, to a different end. A force such as that would break through a person's defense fairly easily, even someone like Fiona, if the effort is properly directed. That is to say, directed by yourself? Of course. I propose that we assemble the family and force our way through to Blaze and Fiona, wherever they may be. We hold them locked in the flesh, just for a moment or so, just long enough for me to strike. As you did with Martin? Better, I trust. Martin was able to break free at the last moment. That should not occur this time with all of you helping. Even 3 or 4 would probably be sufficient. You really think you can pull it off that easily? I know we had better try. Time is running. You will be one of the ones executed when they take Amber, and so will I. What do you say? If I become convinced that it is necessary, then I would have no choice but to go along with it. It is necessary, believe me. The next thing it is that I will need is the Jewel of Judgment. What for? If Fiona is truly in the courts of chaos, the trump alone will probably be insufficient to reach her and hold her, even with all of us behind it. In her case, I will require the jewel to focus our energies. I suppose that could be arranged. Then the sooner we are about it, the better. Can we set things up for tonight? I'm sufficiently recovered to handle my end of it. Hell no, I said, standing. What do you mean? He clenched the arms of the chair, half rising. Why not? I said I would go along with it if I became convinced that it was necessary. You admitted that a lot of this is conjecture. That alone is sufficient to keep me from being convinced. Forget about being convinced, then. Can you afford to take the chance? The next attack is going to be a lot stronger than the last, Corwin. They are aware of your new weapons. They're going to allow for this in their planning. Even if I agreed with you, Brand, I'm certain that I could not convince the others that the executions are necessary. Convince them? Just tell them. You've got them all by the throat, Corwin. You are on top right now. You want to stay there, don't you? I smiled and moved toward the door. I will, too, I said, by doing things my way. I will keep your suggestion on file. Your way is going to get you dead, sooner than you think. I'm standing on your rug again, I said. He laughed. Very good. But I was not threatening you. You know what I meant. You are responsible for all of Amber now. You have to do the right thing. And you know what I meant. I'm not going to kill a couple more of us just because of your suspicions. I would need more than that. When you get it, it may be too late. I shrugged. We'll see. I reached toward the door. What are you going to do now?
I shook my head. I don't tell anybody everything that I know, Brand. It is a kind of insurance.
I can appreciate that. I only hope that you know enough.
Or perhaps you fear that I know too much, I said. For a moment, a wary look danced on the muscles beneath his eyes. Then he smiled.
I am not afraid of you, brother, he said.
It is good to have nothing to fear, I said. I opened the door.
Wait,
he said. Yes?
You neglected to tell me who was with you when you discovered Martin's trump, in the place where I had left it.
Why, it was random, I said.
Oh, is he aware of the particulars?
If you mean, does he know that you stabbed his son, I said, the answer is no. Not yet.
I see. And of Benedict's new arm, I understand that you somehow got it for him in Tirnanerth. I would like to know more about this.
Not now, I said. Let's save something for our next get-together. It won't be all that long. I went on out and closed the door, my silent regards to the rug. Chapter 8. After visiting the kitchens, compiling an enormous meal, and demolishing it, I headed for the stables, where I located a handsome young sorrel which had once belonged to Eric. I made friends with him in spite of this, and a short while later we were moving toward the trail down Colvere, which would take us to the camp of my shadow forces. As I rode and digested, I tried to sort out the events and revelations of what, to me, had been the past few hours. If Amber had indeed arisen as the result of Dworkin's act of rebellion within the courts of chaos, then it followed that we were all of us related to the very forces which now threatened us. It was, of course, difficult to decide how far anything Dworkin said might now be trusted, yet the Black Road did run to the courts of chaos, apparently as a direct result of Bran's ritual, a thing which he had based on principles learned from Dworkin. Fortunately, for now, the parts of Dworkin's narrative which required the greatest credulity were those things which were not of any great moment, from an immediate, practical standpoint. Still, I had mixed feelings about being descended from a unicorn. Corwin! I drew rein. I opened my
Corwin!
I drew rein. I opened my mind to the sending, and the image of Ganelon appeared. I'm here, I said. Where did you get hold of a set of trumps? And learn how to use them?
I picked up a pack from the case in the library a while back. Thought it a good idea to have a way of getting in touch with you in a hurry. As for using them, I just did what you and the others seem to do. Study the trump, think about it, concentrate on getting in touch with a person.
I should have gotten you a pack long ago, I said. It was an oversight on my part, which I'm glad you've remedied. Are you just testing them now, or did something come up?
Something, he said. Where are you?
As chance would have it, I'm on my way down to see you.
You're all right?
Yes.
Fine, come ahead then. I'd rather not try bringing you through by this thing the way you people do. It is not that urgent. I will see you by the by.
Yes. He broke the contact, and I rustled the reins and continued on. For a moment I had been irritated that he had not simply asked me for a deck. Then I recalled that I had been away for over a week. By Amber's time, he was probably been getting worried. Didn't trust any of the others to do it for him. Perhaps rightly so. The descent went quickly, as did the balance of the journey to the camp. The horse, whose name, by the way, was Drum, seemed happy to be going somewhere and had a tendency to pull away at the least excuse. I gave him his head at one point to tire him a bit, and it was not too long afterward that I sighted the camp. I realized at about that time that I missed Star. I was the subject of stares and salutes as I rode into camp. A silence followed me, and all activity ceased as I passed. I wondered whether they believed I had come to deliver a battle order. Ganelon emerged from his tent before I dismounted.
Fast, he observed, clasping my hand as I came down. Pretty horse, that.
Yes, I agreed, turning the reins over to his orderly. What news have you?
Well, he said, I'd been talking to Benedict.
Something stirring on the Black Road?
No, nothing like that. He came to me after we returned from those friends of his, the Tessies, to tell me that Random was all right, that he was following a lead as to Martin's whereabouts. We got to talking of other matters after that, and finally he asked me to tell him everything I knew about Dara. Random had told him about her walking the pattern, and he had decided then that too many people other than yourself were aware of her existence.
So what did you tell him?
Everything.
Including the guesswork, the speculation after tearing an oath?
Just so.
I see. And how did he take this?
He seemed excited about it. Happy, I'd even say. Come talk with him yourself.
I nodded, and he turned toward his tent. He pushed back the flap and stepped aside. I entered. Benedict was seated on a low stool beside a footlocker atop which a map had been spread. He was tracing something on the map with the long middle finger of the glinting skeletal hand attached to the deadly, silver-cabled, fire-pinned mechanical arm that I had brought back from the city in the sky. The entire device now seemed attached to the stump of his right arm, a little below the point where the sleeve had been cut away from his brown shirt. A transformation which halted me with a momentary shudder. So much did he resemble the ghost I had encountered. His eyes rose to meet my own, and he raised the hand in greeting, a casual, perfectly executed gesture. And he smiled the broadest smile I'd ever seen crease his face. "Corwin," he said, and then he rose and extended that hand. I had to force myself to clasp the device which had almost killed me, but Benedict looked more kindly disposed toward me than he had in a long while. I shook the new hand, and its pressures were perfect. I tried to disregard its coldness and angularity, and almost succeeded, in my amazement at the control he had acquired over it in such a brief time.
"I owe you an apology," he said. "I've wronged you, and I'm very sorry."
"It's all right," I said. "I understand." He clasped me for a moment, and my belief that things had apparently been set right between us was darkened only by the grip of those precise and deadly fingers on my shoulder. Ganelon chuckled and brought up another stool, which he set at the other end of the locker. My irritation at having aired the subject I had not wanted mentioned, whatever the circumstances, was submerged by the sight of its effects. I could not remember having seen Benedict in better spirits. Ganelon was obviously pleased at having effected the resolution of our differences. I smiled myself and accepted a seat, unbuckling my sword belt and hanging Grayswandir on the tent pole. Ganelon produced 3 glasses and a bottle of wine. As he set the glasses before us and poured, he remarked,
"To return the hospitality of your tent that night back in Avalon."
Benedict took up his glass with but the faintest of clicks.
"There is much more ease in this tent," he said. "Is that not so, Corwin?"
I nodded and raised my glass. "To that ease. May it always prevail."
"I've had my first opportunity in a long while," he said, "to talk with Random at some length. He has changed quite a bit."
"Yes," I agreed.
"I'm more inclined to trust him now than I was in days gone by. We had the time to talk after we left the Tessies."
"Where were you headed?"
Some comments Martin had made to his host seemed to indicate that he was going to a place I knew of further off in shadow, the block city of Herat. We journeyed there and found this to be correct. He had passed that way.
"I'm not familiar with Herat," I said.
"A place of adobe and stone. A commercial center at the junction of several trade routes. There, Random found news which took him eastward and probably deeper into shadow. We parted company at Herat, for I did not want to be away from Amber over long. Also, there was a personal matter I was anxious to pursue. He told me how he had seen Dara walk the pattern on the day of the battle."
"That's right," I said. "She did. I was there, too." He nodded.
"As I said, Random had impressed me. I was inclined to believe he was telling the truth. If this were so, then it was possible that you were also. Granting this, I had to pursue the matter of the girl's allegations. You were not available, so I came to Ganelon. This was several days ago, and had him tell me everything he knew about Dara."
I glanced at Ganelon, who inclined his head slightly. "So now you believe you uncovered a new relative," I said. Mendacious one, to be sure, and quite possibly an enemy, but a relative nevertheless. What is your next move? He took a sip of wine.
I would like to believe in the relationship,
He said. The notion somehow pleases me.
so I'd like to establish it or negate it to a certainty. If it turns out that we are indeed related, then I would like to understand the motives behind her actions. And I would like to learn why she never made her existence known to me directly.
He put down his glass, raised his new hand, and flexed the fingers.
So I would like to begin, he continued, by learning of those things you experienced in Tirnanoth which apply to me and to Dara. I'm also extremely curious about this hand, which behaves as if it were made for me. I've never heard of a physical object being obtained in the city in the sky.
He made a fist, unclenched it, rotated the wrist, extended the arm, raised it, lowered it gently to his knee.
Random performed a very effective piece of surgery, don't you think?
He concluded.
Very, I agreed. So, will you tell me the story?
I nodded and took a sip of wine.
It was in the palace in the sky that it occurred, I said.
The place was filled with inky, shifting shadows. I felt impelled to visit the throne room. I did this, and when the shadows moved aside, I saw you standing to the right of the throne, wearing that arm. When things cleared further, I saw Dara seated upon the throne. I advanced and touched her with Gracewandir, which made me visible to her. She declared me dead these several centuries and bade me return to my grave. When I demanded her lineage, she said she was descended of you and of the hell-maid Lintra. Benedict drew a deep breath but said nothing. I continued. Time, she said, moved at such a different rate in the place of her birth that several generations had passed there. She was the first of them possessed of regular human attributes. She again bade me depart. During this time you had been studying Gracewandir. You struck then to remove her from danger, and we fought. My blade could reach you, and your hand could reach me, that was all. Otherwise, it was a confrontation of ghosts. As the sun began to rise and the city to fade, you had me in a grip with that hand. I struck it free of the arm with Gracewandir and escaped. It was returned with me because it was still clasping my shoulder.
Curious, Benedict said. I have known that place to render false prophecies, the fears and hidden desires of the visitor, rather than a true picture of what is to be. But then it often reveals unknown truths as well. And as in most other things, it is difficult to separate the valid from the spurious. How did you read it?
Benedict, I said, I am inclined to believe the story of her origin. You have never seen her, but I have. She does resemble you in some ways. As for the rest, it is doubtless, as you said, that which is left after the truth has been separated out. He nodded slowly, and I could tell that he was not convinced, but did not want to push the matter. He knew as well as I did what the rest implied. If he were to pursue his claim to the throne and succeed in achieving it, it was possible that he might one day step aside in favor of his only descendant.
What are you going to do? I asked him. Do, he said. What is Random now doing about Martin? I shall seek her, find her, have the story from her own lips, and then decide for myself. This will have to wait, however, until the matter of the Black Road is settled, and that is another matter I wish to discuss with you. Yes? If time moves so differently in their stronghold, they have had more than they need in which to mount another attack. I do not want to keep waiting to meet them in indecisive encounters. I am contemplating following the Black Road to its source and attacking them from their home ground. I would like to do it with your concurrence.
Benedict, I said, have you ever looked upon the courts of chaos? He raised his head and stared at the blank wall of the tent.
Ages ago, when I was young, he said, I hell-rode as far as I might go, to the end of everything. There, beneath the divided sky, I looked upon an awesome abyss. I do not know if the place lies there or if the road runs that far, but I am prepared to take that way again, if such is the case.
And such is the case, I said.
How can you be certain?
I am just returned from that land. A dark citadel hovers within it. The road goes to it.
How difficult was the way?
Here, I said, taking the trump and passing it to him. This was Dworkin's. I found it among his things. I only just tried it. It took me there. Time is already rapid at that point. I was attacked by a rider on a drifting roadway, of a sort not shown on the card. Trump contact is difficult there, perhaps because of the time differential. Gerard brought me back. He studied the card.
It seems the place I saw that time, he said at length. This solves our logistics problems. With one of us on either end of a Trump connection, we can transport the troops right through, as we did that day from Colvir to Garnath.
I nodded. That is one of the reasons I showed it to you, to indicate my good faith. There may be another way involving less risk than running our forces into the unknown. I want you to hold off on this venture until I have explored my way further.
I will have to hold off in any event to obtain some intelligence concerning that place. We do not even know whether your automatic weapons will function there, do we?
No, but I did not have one along to test. He pursed his lips.
You really should have thought to take one and try it.
The circumstances of my departure did not permit this.
Circumstances?
Another time. It is not relevant here. You spoke of following the Black Road to its source.
Yes?
That is not its true source. Its real source lies in the true amber, and the defect in the primal pattern.
Yes, I understand that. Both Random and Ganelon have described your journey to the place of the true pattern, the damage you discovered there. And I see the analogy, the possible connection.
Do you recall my flight from Avalon and your pursuit? In answer, he only smiled faintly. There was a point where we crossed the Black Road, I said. Do you recall it? He narrowed his eyes.
Yes, he said. You cut a path through it. The world had returned to normal at that point. I had forgotten.
There was an effect of the pattern upon it, I said, one which I believe can be employed upon a much larger scale.
How much larger?
To wipe out the entire thing. He leaned back and studied my face.
And why are you not about it?
There are a few preliminaries I must undertake.
How much time will they involve?
Not too much. Possibly as little as a few days. Perhaps a few weeks.
And why didn't you mention all this sooner?
I only learned about how to go about it recently.
But how do you go about it?
Basically, it amounts to repairing the pattern.
All right, he said. Say you succeed. The enemy will still be out there.
He gestured toward Garnath and the Black Road.
Someone gave them passage once.
The enemy has always been out there, I said, and it will be up to us to see that they are not given passage again, by dealing properly with those who provided it in the first place.
I go along with you on that, he said, but that is not what I meant. They require a lesson, Corwin. I want to teach them a proper respect for Amber. Such a respect that even if the way is opened again, they will fear to use it. That is what I meant. It is necessary.
You do not know what it would be like to carry a battle into that place, Benedict. It is literally indescribable. He smiled and stood.
Then I guess I'd best go see for myself, he said. I will keep this card for a time if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Good. And you'll be on your business about the pattern, Corwin, and I will be about my own. This will take me some time, too. I must go give my commanders orders concerning my absence now. Let us agree that neither of us commence anything of a final nature without checking first with the other.
Agreed, I said. We finished our wine. I will be underway myself very soon now, I said, so good luck.
To you also, he smiled again.
Things are better, he said, and he clasped my shoulder as we passed to the entrance. We followed him outside.
Bring Benedict's horse.
Ganelon directed the orderly who stood beneath a nearby tree, and turning, he offered Benedict his hand.
I too want to wish you luck, he said.
Benedict nodded and shook his hand. Thank you, Ganelon, for many things. Benedict withdrew his trumps. I can bring Gerard up to date, he said, before my horse arrives. He riffled through them, withdrew one, and studied it.
How do you go about repairing the pattern?
Ganelon asked me. I have to get hold of the Jewel of Judgment again, I said. With it, I can reinscribe the damaged area.
Is this dangerous?
Yes.
Where is the jewel?
Back on the Shadow Earth, where I left it.
Why did you abandon it?
I feared that it was killing me. He contorted his features into a near impossible grimace.
I don't like the sound of this, Corwin. There must be another way.
If I knew a better way, I'd take it.
Supposing you just followed Benedict's plan and took them all on?
You said yourself that you could raise infinite legions in Shadow. You also said that he is the best man there is in the field. Yet the damage would remain in the pattern, and something else would come to fill it, always. The enemy of the moment is not as important as our own inner weakness. If this is not mended, we are already defeated. The no foreign conqueror stands within our walls. He turned away.
I cannot argue with you. You know your own realm, he said, but I still feel you may be making a grave mistake by risking yourself on what may prove unnecessary at a time when you are very much needed.
I chuckled, for it was Vial's word, and I had not wanted to call it my own when she had said it. It is my duty, I told him. He did not reply. Benedict, a dozen paces away, had apparently reached Gerard, for he would mutter something, then pause and listen. We stood there, waiting for him to conclude his conversation so that we could see him off.
Yes, he is here now, I heard him say. No, I doubt that very much, but...
Benedict glanced at me several times and shook his head.
No, I do not think so, he said. Then, all right, come ahead.
He extended his new hand, and Gerard stepped into being, clasping it. Gerard turned his head, saw me, and immediately moved in my direction. He ran his eyes up and down and back and forth across my entire person, as if searching for something. What is the matter? I said. Brand, he replied. He is no longer in his quarters. At least, most of him isn't. He left some blood behind. The place is also broken up enough to show that there had been a fight. I glanced down at my shirt front and trousers. Are you looking for bloodstains? As you can see, these are all the same things I had on earlier. They may be dirty and wrinkled, but that's all. That does not really prove anything, he said. It was your idea to look, not mine. What makes you think You were the last person to see him, he said. Except for the person he had a fight with, if he really did. What do you mean by that? You know his temper, his moods. We had a small argument. He might have started breaking things up after I left. Maybe cut himself. Gotten disgusted. Trumped out for a change of scene. Wait! His rug. Was there any blood on that small, fancy rug before his door? I'm not sure. No, I don't think so. Why? Circumstantial evidence that he did it himself. He was very fond of that rug. He avoided messing it. I don't buy it, Gerard said, and Cain's death still looks peculiar. And Benedict's servants, who could have found out you wanted gunpowder. Now Brand... This could well be another attempt to frame me, I said, and Benedict and I have come to better terms. He turned toward Benedict, who had not moved from where he stood a dozen paces away, regarding us without expression, listening. Has he explained away those deaths? Gerard asked him.
Not directly, Benedict answered, but much of the rest of the story now stands in a better light. So much so that I am inclined to believe all of it.
Gerard shook his head and glared down at me again. Still unsettled, he said. What were you and Brand arguing about? Gerard, I said, that is our business, till Brand and I decide otherwise. I dragged him back to life and watched over him, Corwin. I didn't do it just to see him killed in a squabble. Use your brains, I told him. Whose idea was it to search for him the way we did, to bring him back? You wanted something from him, he said. You finally got it, and then he became an impediment. No. But even if that were the case, do you think I would be so damned obvious about it? If he had been killed, then it is on the same order as Cain's death, an attempt to frame me. You used the obviousness excuse with Cain, too. It seems to me that it could be some kind of subtlety, a thing you are good at. We have been through this before, Gerard, and you know what I told you then. It would be difficult to have forgotten. He reached forward and seized my right shoulder. I immediately drove my left hand into his stomach and pulled away. It occurred to me then that perhaps I should have told him what Brand and I had been talking about, but I didn't like the way he had asked me. He came at me again. I sidestepped and caught him with a light left near the right eye. I kept jabbing after that, mainly to keep his head back. I was in no real shape to fight him again, and Grace One Deer was back in the tent. I had no other weapon with me. I kept circling him. My side hurt if I kicked with my left leg. I caught him once on the thigh with my right, but I was slow and off balance, and could not really follow through. I continued to jab. Finally, he blocked my left and managed to drop his hand on my biceps. I should have pulled away then, but he was open. I stepped in with a heavy right to his stomach, all of my strength behind it. It bent him forward with a gasp, but his grip tightened on my arm. He blocked my attempted uppercut with his left, continuing its forward motion until the heel of his hand slammed against my chest, at the same time jerking my left arm backward and to the side with such force that I was thrown to the ground. If he came down on me, that was it. He dropped to one knee and reached for my throat. And we're going to stop there. A little bit of a cliffhanger. Wow. We got, I think, 2 chapters left. The next one's kind of a long one. Then there's a short one. Oh, no, 3 chapters left. 4 chapters left? 5 chapters left. Maybe I should just stop guessing. Five chapters left. And then we'll be on Courts of Chaos. Sorry, it's been a long time since I've recorded. I know. It's probably been a frustrating wait. I've just been really busy with work and with just life stuff. And I've also been feeling a little bit burnt out on the whole reading thing. I felt bad. I was trying to find time to record, but it seems like every time that I would find time to do it, I was just feeling too burnt out to give it a shot, or something else had my attention. So I pushed aside some stuff off my schedule tonight so I could record this one. So I make it sound like I'm crazy busy all the time. I'm not. I mean, usually I'm off work at 5. I mean, I could work longer if I wanted. I am my own boss, but I have other stuff I need to do too. And then I like to spend some time catching up with some friends usually. But, I mean, really, I probably could read more often. Things have been slowing down with work now. It's just the burnout thing, But, I don't know. It's hard to find. The hardest part is just, finding, a good hour where I'm not going to be interrupted by anything. I don't have any incoming calls, no messages from customers.
that are pressing. It's hard to predict when that's going to happen and whether or not I'm going to be like motivated to use that time to read, or if I'm just going to be like, man, I just want to relax. So, of course, I mean, it's always excuses with my last few videos. I'm not even going to promise any chapters at this point because to be honest, I'm still a little burnt out. But I will try to do a weekly upload to get the chapters out because I know that like a lot of people are watching and you guys deserve to have some content out. Now that I'm not quite so busy, it's going to be easier to do that. Although there's 0% chance throughout November through January that I'll probably be making content. Maybe I could get a chapter out once in each of those months. But that is the busiest time of year for me with my business. So I don't know that I will have much free time. And if I do, I mean that during that time of year, especially November, December, like I'm so done at the end of the day that when I get back it's late and I don't even want to get on and like play video games or talk to friends and stuff. I'm just totally burnt out at that point. Just keeping up with orders. So yeah, the weekly uploads won't work for those months, but I will try to do them more frequently. To upload more frequently. I know I still technically owe you guys some chapters or some readings rather, not just chapters. I know I owe you guys some episodes. I don't know when I'll be able to deliver on that. Like I said, I've been kind of burnt out, as I've reiterated like way too many times, and I'm going to stop bringing it up. I would love to be able to do that. If I get a second wind here before the busy season, I will try to get those caught up with. I believe I owe you guys like 5 readings, which will not be counted with the monthly, or not monthly, with the weekly readings. So if I can find the will within me to slap an extra chapter in there every couple of days, then I will try to do that. And at least until the 5 extra ones are done. If not, then next year it'll get done. Sometime after the holiday season. Probably during the spring. Spring has always been a great motivator for me. Artistically speaking, and I guess physically speaking as well. Although in the spring, I'm mostly glad to have a reprieve from the busyness of the business. So it's more of an artistic / creative impulse that I get in the spring upon seeing the growth of the return from winter's death, you know, the new life of spring. But I do think that by the spring, I will probably feel the motivation to, if I have not done the 5 extra readings in between the weekly uploads by then, it will be done by then. Which gives me a very long time to procrastinate, I'm aware, but I've already been having this hanging over my head for a long time. I do feel bad. that I haven't been uploading. I really wanted to come back like 3 or 4 weeks ago. Well, like immediately after the last episode, basically, I was intending to at least get a weekly reading in. But you know, that was the camping trip. Damn, that was a long time ago. A full month. So yeah, the bad sunburn. And then I think I did one reading actually after the camping trip. I seem to recall talking about my terrible sunburn in an episode. So maybe that I do believe I did actually come back after the camping trip with one. But immediately after that, I was intending to record an episode, and then things just got busy. Some stuff with the business came, not, I wouldn't say came up. It was more like I decided to try a few things, and I spent a lot of time devoting my time to doing that instead of reading. I mean, I probably could have squeezed the extra time out, because I mean, I squeezed the extra time to make an effort to keep up my friendships and stuff. But, you know, that's something that doesn't take much effort. You just kind of like hang out with your friends and say what's up. The chapters take a lot more out of me. Because my throat is always dying by the end of it. Anyways, apologies. I'll try to keep up weekly uploads at the very least, and see if I can squeeze in a few more here and there, at least till the busy season hits. I'm sure none of you are interested in this anymore after my continual absences, so I apologize for that as well. Obviously, you don't have to feel inclined to support me or anything, but because I mean, this is a free service, but I do feel bad for not uploading so frequently. I try to at least hold myself to the weekly standard. I'm trying to decide after Courts of Chaos whether or not I'll go right into the Merlin cycle. It's been a long time since I've reread the Merlin cycle, so there is a chance that I could maybe get through that one faster, just because it'll be a little fresher to me. Because I've reread Chronicles so many times now that, I mean, I could give you most of the points in my sleep. But I mean, obviously, banger series. It's just whenever you have other stuff going on in your life and it takes a lot out of you to record these, not exactly compelling whenever you know how it goes already by heart. So I apologize for that. That also was a factor in my lack of motivation and my burnout. I don't know. Maybe I mean, I don't really deserve any sort of sympathy or like, hey man, I get it, that's rough for these feelings. It's more of me just telling you the state of affairs, being like, I'm sorry, I hope to do better. I don't expect any I don't know, what is the word I'm trying to think of here? I don't expect any sort of emotional recompense. I don't know why. I can't think of a better way to word that. For my feelings on this and for what I've been feeling about it, I guess. Um, I mean, I feel like kind of a scumbag for not putting out more content, but when you aren't feeling it, you just aren't feeling it. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people won't relate to that. Perhaps some will. I mean, usually I'm the kind of like strike while the iron is hot kind of guy. But since this is more of like a side project for me compared to like what I consider this more like a hobby and a refuge rather than an actual project that I have going on. And so for me, I I don't want to feel burned out doing this because this is a passion project for me. Because I like the Chronicles of Amber. I want it to have an audiobook on YouTube that people can easily get through if they can at least stomach my terrible voice acting skills. Or at least very mediocre. And my very unprofessional recording setup. So it's disappointing to me to feel burnt out about this whenever I'm like I want to do it and I'm passionate about it, but just not necessarily lately I have been. So not to excuse the lack of updates, but that's just what I've been feeling. It's obviously not rational because, you know, emotions rarely are. But that is just my perspective on things. I always like to see people's comments and stuff, though. It always helps keep me inspired to keep making stuff. Heck, if you guys would pester me more, I'd probably get more done just because I'd feel like an asshole for not doing it. So, you know, if you want the secret to me making more content more quickly, or at the very least, force me to keep up with the weekly uploads, then pester me frequently about it, and I'll definitely do it. I do have a Discord server. Not that people use it. I don't even use it. But it exists, and I read messages that appear there. So, I mean, if you want to join and say, hey, make a new chapter, idiot, then you'd be allowed to do so. Well, I mean, I'd prefer if you asked it more nicely, but I won't take offense if it's clearly in a playful manner. They are just words after all. But I think that is it. I don't know. Do I have any more groveling or rambling to do? I don't think so. Hold on, let me think about it. What can I ramble at you guys about a little longer? This is sort of like the end screen ramble has somewhat become a life update as well as just here's what I felt about the reading, here's what I felt about my performance sort of deal. This was a lackluster one, I feel like. Well, actually, I think I did a little better considering the time gap compared to the other time gap returns that I've made. So I do think that by that margin, I have done slightly better coming back. However, I don't think it's my strongest performance. Actually, I don't really think I have a strongest performance. They're all kind of very lackluster, but they get the job done. I only stumbled a couple of times, too, this time around, so there's that. What have I been up to lately? Well, I don't like to talk about my work, just because I feel, I don't know, I don't want to like brag or anything since I own, or at least partially own, a business, and I'm basically my own boss. So, I mean, I never feel like talking about that sort of stuff. It's, I mean, I guess I'm passionate about it because I mean, I do it for a living, and I see myself doing this for many years. But I'm also, I don't want to be that guy who always just is like, "Oh yes, I'm so successful. Listen about my thing I have going on now, and me and Martha were going down to the lake the other day. We purchased a cabin on the shores of Lake Superior because we are quite superior." I don't want to be that kind of guy who just brags about stuff that he has. I don't have that much money, by the way. In fact, I'm like 2 steps from broke because all of the money I get goes into building the business up to hopefully give me a better return later. Uh, Unfortunately, that means I spend most of my time very broke. But hey, maybe later down the line I'll be rich and get to talk with a terrible British accent about purchasing a lake house. Who knows? Um, but I hate to be that kind of guy, you know. So instead, I'll talk about what I've been doing for personal enjoyment lately. I've been waiting for winter to set in to. I've got a long time ago. I like early this summer. I purchased a pottery wheel because I want to learn how to do like thrown pottery. I think that'd be fun. I think that'd be a really fun winter activity when I'm kind of holed up, you know, don't have any yard work to do. And like, you know, if you're feeling like seasonal depression, which I don't really get it too bad, but I definitely am happy whenever the days start to get longer again. Uh Being able to like create something and just like on a whim, just kind of get it out, throw a piece of pottery. I feel like would be fun. Might be a good way to uh feel good about some stuff. It's always nice to make things. Um, let's see what else. I've been replaying Dragon's Dogma: Dark Arisen. Very good game. It starts off like super like stereotypical and boring, but the end of the game is super good. I haven't got there yet in my new playthrough because I've been like trying to learn how to do fancy stuff like finding the best weapons for like what point in the game I'm at, and like finding different materials for upgrades, and like finding cool exploits to get lots of experience points and things like that. Learning how to take care of enemies faster and better. Stuff that I didn't really do the first time I played the game whenever I just kind of beelined it to the end of the storyline, which still took like 50 hours, but this time I'm doing a more thorough job. The game is a lot deeper than I thought it was upon first playthrough, even though I really enjoyed my first playthrough. So, if you play video games, then I recommend picking it up. It's pretty cool. I don't know if this will persuade you, but it sold me. I found a drake wandering the woods whenever I was playing the game for the first time, and I tried to fight it. I was severely underleveled, and so I spent most of the time running around and rapidly guzzling healing items whenever he hit me really hard. He had this one attack the Drake does where it picks you up in like the dragon language. He says, "I am your master," and then slams you into the ground with like every status effect in the game being inflicted on you at once, and it freaking sucks. So I had that happen to me a few times, and I had to like take a bunch of healing like cure items and shovel those down my throat too to get out of that. And I think all told, I probably spent like 3 hours fighting the Drake. I died a few times, and then I think the actual fight lasted, I don't know, somewhere around an hour, maybe even upwards of like an hour and a half. I was very underleveled. I also did not understand like hitting its weak point, which like his heart is his only weak point, and that's like the only way to deal minuscule damage to him whenever you're really low level. I also didn't understand a few exploits I know now, where you can stack attack up, like this temporary attack up eye necklace thing. You can stack it like a ton of times, and it lasts for like 30 seconds or a minute or something like that. And if you just stack a bunch of them, you can do like a crap load of damage. A fuck ton, if you will. And that kind of trivializes the fight whenever you have certain builds that do really good combos. Especially if you like knock him down. Like if you... It's hard to kind of like dodge his attacks because he's really freaking fast and he's huge. And so it's really hard to dodge his attacks. But if you can, then like hit us hard enough times to like make him stagger and fall over, then you spam all the attack ups and like just wail on his heart while he's down, and get out of the way before he gets up and like throws you back. Then you can usually knock down like 5 of his health bars, or maybe more. Sometimes you can just like kill him outright during that time. But yeah, I've been doing stuff like that. It's really fun. It takes like the Drake fight was like initially like an experience. Like I was like, holy cow, this is like 2 hours of my life I've spent fighting this dragon. Well, this Drake. It's kind of like a small dragon. And he's like speaking in dragon tongue during the fight with like the subtitles coming up showing what he's saying. And it was cool. The game is full of fights like that. There's all kinds of like big monsters that you find roaming around, and there's like dungeons and different things you can go explore, and lots of small monsters too. Great game. The combat is super fun. Like, man, it feels like you're actually like controlling a dude and making him do what you want instead of like a crap. I don't like turn-based RPG games. I like to feel the exhilaration of like being in a situation where you have to gauge like what the enemy's doing and like react accordingly. I like those spur of the moment sort of decisions like on the fly that you have to do. Gets the heart rate pumping. So that's why I like Dragon's Dogma a lot. But great game. It can be as easy or as difficult as you want. Honestly, I'd say it leans towards more being difficult, even whenever you have really good gear and stuff, because if you fight enemies just vanilla, if you don't know all the weak points and stuff, or even if you do sometimes, it can be hard to bring down the big guys. It takes a while. Now, if you're like super high level, then I mean, you can take out anything like super quickly if you know how to fight it. Especially if you have that thing I said earlier, the necklaces that boost your attack power and you can stack them. That trivializes a lot of stuff. But I try to only save that for like big boss guys that I have trouble with or would take a long time to kill normally. Sometimes if I'm grinding for like experience to level up, I'll slam a few to... I did a lot of that to fight the Drake. There's a thing called dragon forging, where like if you kill a dragon type enemy, like a worm or like a wyvern or a lightning worm or fire drake or I think there's like a frost drake also. Lots of different types of like dragon enemies. And there's a small chance whenever you kill them that one of your pieces of equipment that you have equipped will be dragon forged, which is like 3-star upgrade is like as high as you can get something, but like when you dragon forge it, it gets like even higher than that. And there's like in the DLC Dark Arisen, which is the version I bought because you know it's just like the game but better. In the Dark Arisen version of the game, you can even have multiple levels of dragon forged, like up to 3 dragon forged levels. But you can only do that in the like the DLC area, and the requirements to do it are like really costly and time and material. So, I mean, it's hard to do, but I got the first level of dragon forging on a few of my equipment. I got it on these like cool lightning daggers I have. I play an assassin. I was playing a strider, and then I changed my vocation to assassin because I heard the assassin has some fun skills. I think once I level up assassin to the max rank on the vocation and unlock all the skills I want, I'll probably switch back to strider, or maybe I'll try magic archer because I've seen cool stuff they can do with their bows where they cast like these magical bolts out of them and stuff. It's really neat. The magic archer I also hear is like really overpowered, so that might be funny to play around with. Anyways, yeah, I've rambled long enough for sure at this point. So sorry about that. Once I get started, it's hard to stop. Anyways, Dragon's Dogma, good game. That's where most of my like an hour or two a night, I'd say, goes into that. Most of my free time. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time, which will be within a week. See ya.